How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to go over the update for the Erika2 Chain Lightning build. I've pushed the damage probably, it's like somewhere 1.5, 2 trillion, somewhere around there DPS. I want to go over the path to get here as well as the interim steps from the last video that we had. With the last video, we were fully on the setup using Malevolent Hand and stacking as much curse effect as we can. That is still going to be the route that you're going to be recommended to go with first if you don't have the money to move on to this later version of the build. So that version of the build, you are still going to be using a Shattered Moonlight, you're still going to be using a Photophobia with immune to shock, and you're still going to be using a cannot become immune to shock relic here. Luckily, you can kind of transition between the two builds, or kind of set yourself up for the two builds, and you can like work towards one while on the other one. On both versions, you are going to still be wanting to stack curse effect early on. As you get to the very end game steps of the current version that I'm on, I could replace these gloves with a gloves that were +2 jump, +2 spells, and then that would mean that I would end up having to craft a chest that had a +1 curse on it instead of this res, and then I would have to basically get my res elsewhere instead. I'm not going to probably not going to bother to do that unless they release something that requires me to update my damage and get it even further than it already is. So I'm not going to go that route. For those that are first coming from the other video, what you're going to want to do here is you will want to have your setup here. Well, let's go ahead and pull this last memory out that I was using before, which was just this settling shock as well as just a higher feline figure here. So what you're going to want to be doing if you are using or going from the last video prior, basically you're doing the same thing. You're getting your cannot become immune to shock. You are getting your Shattered Moonlight. If you can get a corrupted one with this 120% additional spell damage for spell burst skills, it's highly recommended. They're not very expensive now as people are starting to move off of this build. Same thing with the Photophobia with immune to shock. You need to get these pieces first. When you are purchasing your Malevolent Hands, it is important that you buy them with a higher percentage of curse effect on them. This is the most important mod, and the only important mod is getting this 28%, 30% plus. It's really highly recommended. If you can't afford to do that, you're probably better off just starting with Marksman's Bracers with +3 jumps on them. These are going to be pretty inexpensive, and these are going to save you a ton of money to start off with. So that is going to be what I recommend you do. If you're not at the step yet where you can afford 500 FE for Malevolent Hands. Everything else outside of that, you are just going to be going for curse effect on every single piece of gear you can. If you are working towards setting up your gear so that it's going to be set up for this version of the build as well, that's pushing into the trillions of damage, then you are going to want your gear to have curse effect and cooldown recovery speed on them wherever it can. So on your helmet, you can get yourself up to cooldown recovery speed and curse effect, and then on your rings, you're just going to be going with curse effect on them. For your weapon, you want curse effect, cooldown recovery speed, spell skill levels, additional spell damage, and then this last one is either you want double damage or you want crit damage. I did blemish this when I pushed this this mod to T0. I probably will end up re-dreamcrafting this at some point. So far from our testing as well, it has determined that flat lightning damage to spells does do a bit more than the percentage spell damage. So for that last safe prefix craft, just craft flat damage to spells instead. For your candles, if you are playing the earlier version of the build, which is not like the full endgame version that I'm playing now, you are just going to be still wanting to use +1 jump and curse effect candles. Instead of the activation mediums, you'll just be using psychic burst because you are still going to be spell bursting. And then You can use the activation medium spell bursts instead of the activation medium preparations for your skills. But for the version that I'm on now, there are some important breakpoints that we are focusing on, which we are needing to hit breakpoints for cooldown recovery speed. These are very important. And then in regards to the actual legendary relic itself, you want to ensure that you are getting one that is either 123, which is going to be the best, 124, or 125. We did have someone test, someone with a Takina, if you guys know him from the Discord channel. He did a lot of work to test all 3 relics for us because he could afford to do so. You do want, the only important mod, you need to ensure that it is the 0.4 second cooldown. That is the most important thing more than anything. And then worst case scenario, you either want to buy a 125 or a 134. Those are both going to be the same because those are both going to be 80 basically. 80 shock settles in order to trigger the next feline figure. If you are using a 124, you do need to have a relic that has this settle shock damage up to +5. And then you will also need to have your electrify stacks at 20 stacks in order to ensure that you are getting 35 electrifies or 35 shock settles every single time your feline figure hits, which with the 124 is half of what you need. So every other feline figure that is cast is basically self-propagating itself, and that's how you get this like rapid kind of setup where you're getting a ton of feline figures like all triggering at once, like almost like a just a very straight blast of just basically they're triggering every 0.1 seconds. So you will notice some very distinct damage bumps at every like 100% CDR you get. So you'll be starting off, I started off this build at about 200% CDR. I wouldn't try to go to the version that is using the legendary relic until you have exquisite box. Keep that in mind. So do not go to this version again until you can afford exquisite box. It is pretty expensive. And then the relic itself is maybe about 1,000 FE. I think you can probably find a 125 for less. They're probably going to continue to go down in price every single day as well. So because of the fact that you have very important cooldown breakpoints, at this point, if you are short on cooldown, which for me, in order to get to 400%, I will need to have cooldown on a candle, as well as T0 on a few pieces of gear here. I only needed it on, I want to say, 1 or 2 of them, as well as having it on my staff, in order to hit 400% while using CDR candles. But you want to have it set up to where you don't need to have a CDR candle on at all. So you can see I'm at 388 with only 1 CDR candle on, which is unfortunate because it means that in order to hit my maximum damage breakpoint, I do need to use 2 CDR candles. So what it is important to do is basically if you want a candle that either has jump on it still, you want one with cooldown recovery and jump, or cooldown recovery and your Soul Eater mod here, one of the two. The Soul Eater candles with the Soul Eater candles plus CDR are going to be pretty expensive because you're competing with people who are playing Savage Treasury Hunt. So they're going to basically increase in price because of that. In regards to your activation mediums for this version of the build, you do want to get an activation medium that has a high trigger time. So you want it basically upwards 1.8, 1.9, 2 seconds, somewhere up there, because you want to ensure that you're actually getting all of your instruction stacks. If the better version of activation medium channel that you have, the lower you can get on this. But if you're starting off and you can't afford an activation medium channel, which is 1-to-1, which they're like 3,000 FE, so I didn't bother buying one. If you can't afford one of those, then just buy one of these with a higher, closer to 2 seconds. And as you saw, I'm still doing trillions of damage, so it's still plenty. For your curses, you just use activation medium preparation. And then on your Path of Flames, you have an activation medium channel. So every time, for mine right now, I get an instruction stack for every 2 stacks channeled. You can, again, get this to where it gives you 1 instruction for every 1. But that is, 3,000 something FE instead of 600 or 500, whatever the activation medium channel is. We are using blurry steps because it is very hard to actually get to your 20 electrify stacks. You just are just a bit shy on movement speed. Instead of blurry steps, you could always just like Dreamcraft additional movement speed on your boots. I have a link in the spreadsheet to Takina's like 100,000 FE version of this build, which is like, it's pushed pretty far. Obviously, it's 100,000 FE. So if you are trying to push this to the extreme levels, that link is there. If not, you can float on this one, which is probably somewhere around maybe 10k FE, somewhere around there. And then for your last curse, you don't need to have your NNE activation medium on either of these, because these are both being triggered by Exquisite Box. This one triggers whenever you deal damage here, and this one's triggering whenever you take damage, which you're constantly taking damage because of your feline figure procs. For your auras, same thing, precise elemental amplification or just normal elemental amplification, precise elemental resistance. Highly recommend this. It's really hard to basically have really nice survivability without it. It increases your max resistance by a ton. It gives you a ton of resistance as well. So it's important that you kind of get that. If you can afford it, it's one of the best early purchases to make. And then precise elemental electric conversion. You put this on seal conversion, so you're reserving more life. And then you can have energy fortress here, as well as your last aura. For the candles, you are going to want a Soul Eater candle here. For mapping, even if it means you're sitting at 300% CDR instead of 400%, just use a Soul Eater candle. It's going to save you a lot of time still. You don't really need that much damage unless you're really trying to push 8-4 deep space or something, which, unless you have chalk or like specific pets, you're probably not, you're probably better off just farming T8 or 8-2 and then selling off the 5+ beacons. Then we have, again, another cooldown recovery speed and LA res here. If I'm just sitting on my 300% cooldown recovery speed for mapping, I'll probably just run this jumps and curse effect. And then again, for the memories and relics, you want an Extreme Cat evolution here. This is basically providing the majority of the damage at this point, which pushes the build, from that 1 trillion or a couple trillion of what you're pushing on the curse build to the 7 or 8 or 9 trillion damage that you can get on this version, pushing it to the absolute extreme. This is healing you as well. The value on this heal mod doesn't matter. You're always going to be healing enough even with the lowest roll, so don't worry about that. Again, just roll for the slots. Again, you want 1, 2, X. 1, 2, 3 is best. 1, 2, 4 is slightly worse. 1, 2, 5 is, significantly worse. Or not really significantly. Like, you'll lose probably half your damage. Like, you'll go from, if you were on the max version when Takina tested it, he went from like 8 trillion down to 4 or something with the 1, 2, 5. But with the 1, 2, 4, he only lost maybe 10 to 15% damage, which is very, very little, when your damage is that high. It's not that big of a deal. For your memories, you are going to be wanting to run a cat power generation conjecture. If you can get the non-prototype version of this, of course, it's better. But if not, just get one with a low percent additional damage. They're not very expensive now. And then you want an unplugged cattail. If you can't get this, it's fine. I mean, just get a lower roll if you can't afford it. Worst case scenario, you can just use some memories. You do want at least one memory with this convert lightning damage taken to cold and fire. And again, if you're not using a 1, 2, 3 relic, then you want to ensure you're using this settles additional shocks. If you are using the version that is 1, 2, 4, then you do need to ensure you are running this version that has settles additional shocks for feline figure. If not, you can run one with like a feline figure chance, things like that, which will slightly increase your damage, things like that. For survivability's sake, you are highly recommended to use this convert lightning damage taken to cold and fire because you are running 40% lightning res because of wild lightning. So shifting your lightning hits off of this is going to really help with ensuring that you survive. For the tree itself, nothing has changed really between the builds whatsoever. We have tested this lightning skills settle shock damage doesn't affect feline figure, so we don't actually need it. It's pretty useless. You're just pushing for this additional max damage over here. You're still taking your for each spell skill used recently, get crit damage, and then you are also getting basically all the movement speed you possibly can along the tree. And then for Bladerunner, we are pushing over here. We're taking the movement speed, we're taking the +1 agility blessing, so that we can have even more movement speed. And then we are getting the lightning pen and the why is this still on? This one is fine. There's like nothing else we can really take with it. I will test this. This one might actually not be on here. I think when I was testing stuff, it might be better to just put this in % lightning damage elsewhere in the tree, or just another % damage. So I will add an addendum at the end of the video or in the description after I test this to see if it has an impact. For Warlock, everything's still the same. We're just taking this, the sealed mana, the damage, grab some res here, movement speed while blur, and then the spell levels, and then all the damage that we can, and the ES. For your slates, your best mod that you can possibly get on your slates is going to be +1 jump. If you have +1 levels, you do want to push your Chain Lightning to level 30. Pushing your Chain Lightning to level 30 is good. Anything pushing it past level 30 is going to be kind of wasted. So outside of that, you are just going to want it to basically get +1 jump on every single slate you can. If you have like an Insight Pedigree here instead of like the 2 +1 jump slates, you can run those as well. That's probably still going to be fine. That's basically going to be the same damage or very similar. And if not, having this restore 30% missing energy shield when suffering a severe injury is very helpful at surviving on this build. So I highly recommend at least having one of these, as well as having some chance to get blur for mana is very nice. Blur effect also very nice. And then, you know, +1 skills candle, because again, you are trying to push your Chain Lightning to level 30. Because every level going up to 30 is going to be better than jump, but after that, jump is just going to be strictly better. Having one of these slates as well with 30% chance to gain a stack of any blessing is very nice and very good. So this is going to, you know, give you more than anything else. So I highly recommend it. If you are going for the super endgame version of this build, you are just trying to get +1 jump slates, and then you're going to use Prairie in order to get, you know, 4 more jumps off of those, and then you're going to use the Sparks to get even more jumps off of those. With that version, you're just basically trying to get, you know, 15 jumps out of your slates. So let's go ahead and showcase a map on this. Typically will be farming on T8-2. If you watch the stream, you can kind of see me doing this pretty much all day. We will fully juice these. It doesn't matter what the mods are, you're going to be fine. It says your survivability is low, but it's not a big deal. And then the best thing about this version of the build is all I have to do is hit W at the beginning of the map, and this is a 0-button build. So I don't have to hit anything. I'm just moving my mouse in order to basically move around, and everything is going to die along the way. We don't have to stop for anything, as you see with the Soul Eater candle as well. It just continues to ramp the movement speed higher and higher as you go through. Yeah, this is going to be the build version that I recommend. If you're not on this version, blinking around is still fine. It's just not quite as... it doesn't feel quite as good as doing it on this. We can go ahead and we'll do a Demiman village showcase, even if it's going to be reduced loot, just to kind of showcase what it's like. I am consistently spamming the... Black Sail here, just because the relics and memories on this character are worth a ton of money as well. And then we're always just going for these legendary hero memories. And let's go ahead and showcase the Demiman Village as well, so you guys can see that. Since that's our normal testing map, we use this on everything. So let's showcase this here. Where's Demiman? Until it's been a while since I've been running it. Yeah. So we go ahead and do this, and then we just do our normal things that we do. You can manually trigger blurry steps the first time. It is going to keep triggering once you start hitting things afterwards. But other than that, your standard setup, you run, everything dies, and you collect your loot and you move on. So yeah, the build is really, really nice. As you see, I have 10k ES. It's surprisingly tanky, more than you would expect it to be for an Erika. You know, I will get one tapped by something from time to time, but pretty much if something doesn't kill you in one hit, it's not going to kill you whatsoever. So because of the sustain that you're having from the unplugged cattail, you are, or from the relic rather, like I'm healing for 7% energy shield every single time a feline figure hits. So as you can see, there's like 20 of them going off at a time. So I'm healing for basically 100% of my life repeatedly, or 100% of my ES and life repeatedly. So because of that, again, you have some really, really strong survivability, and it is very, very helpful. So yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. And other than that, pop into the stream. I am typically streaming in the late evenings for NA time, and then on the weekends sometimes I'll be streaming in the early mornings for NA as well. So yeah, see you in the next one.